Every year, thousands of successful business owners signed their tax return believing there was nothing more they could have done. And in many cases, that's simply not the truth. And it's not because they hired the wrong CPA or tax pro. It's not because they made bad business decisions, but because many of the best tax saving opportunities have deadlines. And once those deadlines pass, so do the opportunities. That's what I wanted to talk to Marty Durbin about in this interview. Marty is a CPA, fiduciary, and the managing partner at Crawford Carter and Durbin in Aperture Wealth Management. For more than 40 years, Marty and his team of CPAs and advisors have helped business owners like you make smarter tax and financial decisions before the opportunities disappear. So before we started recording, we talked about Judge Learned Hand and his famous quote of every taxpayer has the right to arrange their affairs to pay the least amount of tax legally possible. And I hit the record button right after asking, is it fair to say that most business owners are not paying too much because they're doing something wrong? They're paying too much because no one has helped them arrange the affairs before the year end. And his answer, you have to hear, because tax prep reports what already happened, and tax strategy gives you the opportunity to influence what happens next. So if you're a business owner who's looking for greater clarity, more control over your tax position, and a better understanding of all the decisions available to you before the year ends, I think you'll find this conversation extremely valuable. So let's get Marty's take, shall we? Most business owners are paying too much in taxes because they're doing something wrong. They're paying too much in taxes because nobody is helping them, make better decisions before those taxes are created in the first place. Is that what you're seeing and hearing out there, Marty, yourself?
Yeah, I think most business owners are experts at their business and very successful at doing that, but have never been shown how tax strategy works. As they say, you don't know what you don't know. In fact, we like to quote a famous legal scholar in America named Learned Hand, who served as a federal judge for over 50 years. And he once said, in America, there are two tax systems, one for the informed and one for the uninformed. Both are legal. Our goal is to put you in the informed category, so you're in control and you pay the minimum tax possible and feel a whole lot better about your financial situation.
Yeah, that's a great way to kind of look at it is if you don't know, how are you going to leverage these tax strategies and know? And I'm curious about the beginning of your, career. What formulated that philosophy of taxes and financial wealth that you have here today?
Well, I'm a Texas native, grew up in Texas and moved to Colorado. My dad was in a business that bought other businesses. So we moved around when they acquired something and needed somebody to consolidate that into their group. And especially while we were in Colorado, we did lots of outdoors things, Boy Scouts, camping, hunting, fishing, all that kind of taught me discipline, focus, follow through, et cetera. And in high school, my dad encouraged me that, okay, when I went to college, I needed to get into something like accounting, something that everybody needed, regardless of what they did. And so that's what I did. We happened to be moving back to Texas at the time I started college. I went to University of Texas at Arlington and majored in accounting, became a CPA. And while I was working on that degree, I worked on an internship, not actually an internship. I was working full time at a big eight CPA firm in Dallas. But as soon as I graduated, a job came up at a financial services firm in Fort Worth, and I ended up working there for 30 years and started out in the accounting department, ended up becoming the chief financial officer, and then ultimately the chief operating officer. But while I was there, I had the opportunity to work as an advisor. I was always fascinated at what they did. And in doing that, I realized helping people make decisions that improve their situation was a whole lot more rewarding than just, crunching numbers. This was a whole lot more rewarding. So that's the direction I went.
It gets pretty chilly up there, right? So, we're a little jealous of you there in the evenings.
Because there's nothing to slow down the wind except for a few barbed wire fences. And
So
so
that
New
that's the
Mexico would
tumbleweed. That's the West Texas tumbleweed we see
That's
in
the
our.
tumbleweeds. Yeah, they would pile up between the houses in the neighborhood, and they'd go all the way up to the roof line. We
Which I
got
see is just going across the road.
well, that's it. They're big as a Volkswagen, and
Dang,
you got to watch out for them.
don't hit that. Yeah, for sure. Oh. Well, when did you realize that, taxes in that 30 years, working with that big eight firm, when did you realize that taxes really is not the whole story of an individual's, financial journey? And
Well, it actually started out in that financial services business I was in. We were paying a lot of unnecessary taxes and a lot of extra government overhead just because of the way we were structured. And in going through a lot of the continuing education I took, ideas began to formulate on how we could turn the business into a business that paid no taxes at all. And all of the profits of the company went to the people that own the company or work for the company. And that's probably to date, one of the biggest tax planning victories I've had. And you turn that into working with clients. And a lot of times it's the same thing. They're making good money, but they're paying too much in taxes and probably going through too much government overhead in filing those taxes or remaining compliant. And when you're focused on just the tax returns, that only gives you an idea about the past. It's kind of operating, looking in the rearview mirror. And clients needed guidance about the future. They want to know how to put themselves in control and be in a better financial position ultimately. And so, I learned that you got to figure out their goals, their fears. How important is their family? Do they have specific emotions about money? And people really needed advice, not just compliance on, file the tax forms they needed to file.
what I'm hearing is that working with you, you're kind of the same person looking in the windshield to guide and steer that financial journey. But you're also the same person looking in that rear view mirror, documenting where the activity was and what was executed.
Yeah, you've still got to learn from the past. You've still got to, file that tax return to show Uncle Sam what you did last year and that you paid the right amount of tax. And most firms, that's what they're built around, is just filing returns. And they do a bunch of them. In fact, some of them do so much they don't have time to look forward and help with planning. They're always just looking in that rearview mirror. And, everything they do happens after year end, when it's too late to do anything about it. There's few proactive conversations.
Right.
And these are good people, but they're just working in a reactive system, and that doesn't serve the client the best. Business owners need planning before decisions are made, not, hey, here's your tax return, and oh, too bad, you're going to owe a big check. They need to be able to anticipate how they can be in control of the outcome and not just be a victim of it.
With all that said, I just kind of get right to brass tacks. What do you think business owners really need?
Starts out with asking the client different questions instead of just, okay, you know, last year ended a couple months ago, bring me all your stuff and I'll hammer out your tax return. That's really, you still have to do that, of course, to fill out the tax return, but you also need to ask, where do you want to go? What are your goals? And strategy always starts with those goals, not history. Every recommendation should support a bigger objective. And so we help clients make better decisions before year end or before it's too late. In other words, we want to put them in control of the future.
Having that control, how does that work throughout the year? Because I know CCD does, annual engagements for their tax advisory. I understand that. So that control element, when it's not tax season, or maybe it's not exactly planning season, what are some of the things that the business owner will be able to have better, able to manage better? Is that something like quarterly taxes might be improved?
Yeah, that's part of it. The tax planning season is really all year long. I mean, it happens with every decision that a business owner or an individual makes. And we try to be proactive, and quarterly, we want to get together with the client to see how this past quarter worked out, make sure they've paid enough in estimated taxes. Maybe the business was slow last quarter and they can reduce the next estimated payment they're making. But anyway, we want to keep up to date with things and take advantage of planning opportunities as they come up or before they come up. And the big thing there, besides the quarterly meetings, is we're available all year long. If that client hears something, reads something, overhears a conversation about something that gives them an idea that, hey, is that something I can take advantage of? We want them to call us and talk about it so that we can implement some planning that puts them in a better financial position and essentially puts them in control. We want to help them with proactive decisions, help them understand the possible options. It used to be, having a roadmap was the key. Tell me where you're going. Let's draw it up on a roadmap, highlight your route. Well, technology has given us a GPS. Well, that's even better because the GPS can tell you where the traffic is backed up, what route may be faster, what route may have zero tolls instead of high tolls. Anyway, it helps out with planning a whole lot better. And all this leads to the client having a whole lot more confidence in their financial direction. And that's where we want them to be.
I touched on much of my next question I was going to ask is really kind of what it is tax control and what will that give that individual? You mentioned confidence, but let's dive in a little deeper. So what exactly does tax control mean?
Well, number one, it provides a lot of clarity. A client knows better where they are. We help to refine, where they want to be. The goal is no surprises, and that they understand all the possible options and they're in charge of deciding which option is the best for them.
What makes CCD different now, and what do you see in the future?
Well, the client, that's number one, and it's that relationship that comes first, and it's a relationship with the client, not a relationship with their tax return. And that's what they are to a lot of other firms, unfortunately, is okay, this is just another tax return that we got to hammer out before the deadline. No, that's part of it, but that's not the real value of what we do. It's that relationship. We want to be a wise friend, a financial counselor, somebody they can bounce things off of. Uh, we don't get judgmental, but we'll tell them, okay, that's, you know, not a good idea to do that. Here's maybe a better way to approach it. And we do that all in light of what their goals are, what their fears are, where they want to be financially. And those ongoing conversations are very important. That's why the quarterly meetings are important. That's where we insist on having a meeting every quarter just to catch up on things and see if anything needs to be adjusted or changed, and make sure that there's accountability on our part, but sometimes make sure there's accountability on the client's part. If we're trying to implement a particular strategy, there's record keeping requirements that the client will have, and we want to make sure that they're prepared in case they need to provide documentation on a strategy that we implemented with them. So implementation is a big thing, and it happens on a continuous basis, and it all boils down to, again, we want to help the clients achieve what matters most to them, and we want to put them in control.
So when somebody finally has a strategy, maybe they've been doing that, reactive for several years. What do you see changes in a client when they have that strategy in place?
Well, the biggest thing that changes is their confidence. They see what's coming down the road, and they're not as stressed out about it. They have this feeling of controlling their own destiny.
Right.
Better decisions come from better perspective and less time wasted on preoccupation on what they can't control. And as I mentioned before, fewer surprises. They have better control over their cash flow. They know what's coming. They don't get blindsided by, hey, this quarter, you need to write a check for an extra 50 grand for your estimated taxes. We want them to know what's coming, no surprises, and more peace of mind.
Curtails into creating abundant lives. And that I know that that's a moniker that you live by. And so tell me a little bit more of what does creating abundant lives mean to you, Marty?
Well, it means different things to different people. Some people may think that, okay, a more abundant life means I'm going to have a lot of money. Well, that's not necessarily true. Money helps you get what you want, but abundance is, sometimes it's family, sometimes it's time freedom, having more options, peace of mind, and wanting to help people create an abundant life. That's helping people live the life they want. And financial success should support that abundant or fulfilling life that they have. We want to help somebody where they're not just aimlessly being whipped around by forces beyond their control. We want them to have that control and them to achieve what they want to achieve.
So if someone's listening to this now and maybe they don't currently have a solid strategy, what would you want to, what would you want them to take away from?
Well, the big thing is, again, don't drive your business looking in the rearview mirror. And you may have been doing that all along, and it's pretty reactive. And what we try to do is understand the client more and give them the sense that, hey, we can help be your GPS with, you tell us where you want to go, and we're going to give you some route alternatives. What's the quickest? What's the cheapest? What's got the least traffic, the least construction. We want them to know what's coming, where they can decide which is best for them. Help them take advantage of opportunities without wasting a lot of time and fuel, so to speak. There may be opportunities that clients are missing. There may be a better way to help them get to their goals. So again, we start out with knowing what they need, what they want, provide some clarity, give them options that they can pursue to get where they want. And when they seek guidance on a particular question, we want to be there to be available for them. And with any new client, they just need to take that first step and get in touch with us. And then the conversation goes from there. We learn more about them, more about their goals, more about their history, and we can put together a plan that, again, puts them in control of their situation.
Love it. I really love the analogy of the car, the windshield. Look through the windshield is the future, the finance, the obstacles, all the adversity, deadlines coming ahead, and then you got the rear view mirror of where you've been, what have you done to get where you are, and CCD is the navigation unit. And that is a great way kind of to look at this, and knowing that you have a big trip and you have that navigation that's there to guide you throughout the day. It's going to give somebody a lot of confidence for that journey. If you're watching and listening and something we talked about today resonated with you, if you're ever wondering whether you're making the right decisions with taxes before the end of the year, we'd love to continue the conversation. We've included a link below where you can schedule a tax control consultation with our team. It's an opportunity to take a closer look at your situation, identify potential planning opportunities, and see whether proactive tax strategy could make a meaningful difference for you. And if you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future conversations. We'll continue covering practical strategies to help business owners make financial decisions, keep more of what they earn, and build long-term wealth. And so, Marty, really want to thank you here for being with us today. Really appreciate your perspective and the experience that you've shared with us here today. So thank you. I look forward to our next time.
Yeah, I appreciate your time, David. Thanks.
You bet.